Hello, welcome to today's lecture. Today we're going to actually dive into a case study and explore how to design a holistic integrative nutrition plan. This week we're going to talk about holistic nutrition. Next week we're going to talk about integrating herbal medicine. So there's going to be a lot of review and reflection. We're going to really work on incorporating both our dietary inventions and spiritual care. So hopefully this practical application is going to help you understand really how you can personalize your own integrative nutrition plans, how gut health, probiotics, even intermittent fasting with a spiritual and emotional well-being component can be applied in a real world context. So this is your opportunity to start really kind of applying some of the things that we've been talking about throughout the weeks in this course. Before we do so, I invite you to pray with me. Go to the Lord, seek his wisdom first. So, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to learn and grow in our understanding of how to care for our bodies and spirits through nutrition. As we explore today's case study, we ask for your guidance to help us see how dietary interventions, probiotics, gut health, and spiritual care work together to promote holistic health. May we apply these insights to serve others with wisdom and compassion. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so we are going to introduce you to Miss Sarah Thompson. I will say that this is bits and pieces of a client that I have worked with. So there are some real components to her story. Some other components I've changed, obviously her name, and some of the situations are slightly different. But I did want to be able to share with you some of the things that I have worked with my clients over the past few years, and specifically with this particular client. So let's introduce you to Miss Thompson. We call her Sarah. She is a school teacher. A little overworked, as most school teachers are right now, but she's also a devout Christian. And she came to me because she was really experiencing symptoms of overwork and burnout that really manifested in chronic fatigue, lots of digestive issues, and mild bouts of depression that really have just been consistently getting worse over the past year. She has a really busy lifestyle. She's balancing work full-time, family, she has small children at home, and also her church activities. She's very committed to all three of those and tends to overcommit to things often. Sarah has a really strong faith. She knows of the importance of caring for her body as a temple of the Holy Spirit. She has a pretty strong walk with the Lord and does really connect with her church community often. So when it comes to her primary health concerns, really we're dealing with a few all at the same time. And this is typically what happens when folks come to us. It's never normally just one thing. There tends to be quite a few things that come to the surface. So she is really fatigued, chronically fatigued, is sleeping a lot. We're not sure of the quality of her sleep just quite yet, but doesn't feel like she's actually rested when she wakes up in the morning. Lots of digestive issues. Irregular bowel movements kind of stemming from constipation to diarrhea and everything in between. A lot of bloating, a lot of discomfort, heartburn, just kind of, you name it, she's got it. Mild depression and anxiety that kind of are intertwined. And she's always kind of dealt with some anxiety in her life, but what's really been happening for her over the last years, it seems like it's just starting to get a little unmanageable. And her bouts of depression are getting longer and more frequent. And then she is really complaining a lot of unintentional weight gain. And, she attributes some of this to maybe she's overeating or stress eating, but she hasn't really changed her diet much. But she's starting to see that there are a lot of changes in her weight. Primarily, she's gaining weight a lot easier. So as I said, this is a real case. Some of the major things that stuck out for me when Sarah came was that she knew she didn't feel well. She wanted to feel better, and she really wasn't sure where to start. So that's most of the time what folks need is they need somebody to sit down with them and just kind of look at the big picture and then determine, okay, well, where can we start? What's a small step that we can take today? So in terms of her spiritual and emotional considerations, most of the time our clients are coming to us and they're going to complain about physical complaints first, most of the time. And we have to do some digging to actually get to the root cause. Many of these physical manifestations may have spiritual and emotional causes. And, really being able to sit down and get to the root of them is really important. So as I continued to talk with Sarah, what I started to hear from her story was that she is beginning to feel really disconnected from her usually vibrant spiritual life. And what I noticed her saying a lot was that she was canceling things or not attending things because physically she wasn't feeling well. She was really tired, or, she was having some belly aches, discomforts, things. Her physical symptoms were starting to keep her away from some of the things that she normally would do to cope with some of the stressors in her life. She has also been relying a lot on comfort foods during stressful times. And we know that food can be used kind of inappropriately sometimes. And so she does recognize that often she would choose foods that were much more filling to comfort her. And it would make her feel worse. She might not feel great, but then she would go for those things that were more like comfort foods, and it would lead to even further digestive comfort. And then she would feel really guilty about it after she ate. And so she knew that she wasn't making a good choice, but she didn't quite know what she needed to do to stop doing that. She also really wants and desires to strengthen her relationship with God. As I said, she already had kind of like a daily plan where on most days she was seeking his guidance. She was in her Bible. She, taught Sunday school. And so she knows she needed to be there, but she noticed that those times that she was with God weren't as effective as they were before. Maybe she was a little distracted, or she wasn't feeling well, or she was kind of just going through the motions. And so she really wanted to strengthen that. She did see that there could be a relationship between, if she strengthened her walk with the Lord, this could improve her overall health. And so she loved the idea of seeking a plan that integrated her faith with her nutritional needs. So the first thing that we will do with Sarah, and anytime you're doing kind of a holistic assessment, whether it's nutrition or any kind of assessment, we start kind of with the basics. And there are some questions to help us, dig in to figure out what's really going on in Sarah's life. And so I like to start with the spiritual. Even though most of our folks are going to bring the physical complaints to us first, as I said, often these physical complaints are rooted in spiritual or emotional discomforts, or, long-held beliefs, or whatever that might be. So I like to start spiritually. And so some of the things that I would ask Sarah as part of this assessment to really dig in is, how do you view the role of food and nutrition in your spiritual life? Do you see them as connected? And if you remember in some of our lectures in earlier weeks, we know that, in the Bible, we are told often that food not only nourishes our physical body, but our spiritual health as well. So how does Sarah engage in any spiritual practices related to eating? Is there prayer and gratitude before meals? Does she see that relationship between the physical and the spiritual? And so some of what Sarah shared with me when we started having that conversation was that she acknowledges that her eating habits have strayed far from what she believes honors God. And, where she used to pause frequently, not every single time, but where she would used to pause frequently before eating, she finds herself not doing that now because she's so busy. She's just going from task to task. And so, she really wants to reconnect her nutrition practices with her faith. She recognizes that this is an important act of worship, nourishing her body is. And so there's a place where we can start, right? Let's start with that gratitude. Let's start with prayer and the integration of our faith and our nutrition practices. Emotionally, really, how do her eating habits affect her emotions, and vice versa? How do her emotions affect her eating habits? Are there patterns of emotional eating, particularly in response to stress or anxiety? Are we using food inappropriately? tends to happen a lot. And so what we did find is that Sarah does eat comfort foods during really stressful periods. And this has kind of like a double whammy negative effect, really, because after she would eat the comfort foods, she would feel worse physically and also feel really guilty and a lot of shame. And so we were uncovering that emotional eating was actually closely tied to her anxiety and a sense of the spiritual disconnection. And so she was using eating as like a way to satisfy herself. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but no matter what you eat, you never feel fully satisfied because it's an emotional void that we're trying to fill. And so we did uncover a lot of that was going on with Sarah. Physically, we know that she wasn't really making the best food choices all the time, but I wanted to ask her, like, what does your current diet look like? Can you tell me, what have you eaten for the last 24 hours, 48 hours? If you look over the last week, tell me what you typically eat during a day, and how does that look? Are there any kinds of other deficiencies going on? So, if you look at her diet, does she have any nutrient deficiencies, any food intolerances or imbalances? Start to ask that question, are there any physical manifestations? After you eat certain foods, do you notice that you don't feel good, or, typically what that looks like? And what we found is that Sarah eats a lot of highly processed foods. They're low in fiber. These contribute to multiple digestive issues and fatigue. I know we've said it before in this class, but often what you'll find is that folks are overfed and malnourished because we're not eating real whole foods. And so we're choosing foods that are quick, especially when you've got a really active lifestyle. You tend to choose things that are easy. You tend to eat out a lot. And those foods aren't really high in nutrients. And so it's very likely that she is deficient in essential nutrients like magnesium, vitamin D. B vitamins are a big culprit when you're looking for fatigue. Physical causes of fatigue can actually stem from a lot of these nutrient disorders, problems. And so, I wanted to ask her, do you take any supplements? Do you, are any of these additional things part of your diet? And we did find that on occasion she does take a multivitamin, but she is not consistent with that. She might, if she can remember to take it, she might take it, but she's not using any kind of specific supplements for her digestive health or fatigue. I would say this is pretty common. Most people are not. Although in certain circles, health is really starting to become almost like a fad. And there are folks that will just grab onto supplements and they'll just start taking supplements. They don't know if they need them or not. They just start taking them because everybody else is taking them. But not everybody's that case. Most folks are still coming to me and to us not taking supplements. And maybe they're taking a multivitamin, but they're very inconsistent like Sarah. So she's not really using anything specifically for digestive health or fatigue. In terms of her gut health and microbiome, I can't stress this enough. The relationships between the microbiome, the health of our gut, and the immune system, and our, emotional kind of mental health is, it's profound. There's a lot of data, there's a lot of evidence there. And so a lot of what I do with my clients is I evaluate gut health. And in evaluating her health, specifically, we note bloating, irregular bowel movements, belly aches, tummy aches. This is a sure sign that she has an imbalance in her gut microbiome. She could likely benefit from probiotics and prebiotic foods to support her gut health. And so having some conversations with her about what that might look like is a really important step. So after we do that assessment, and that's very comprehensive, that should take some time with folks. After we do that assessment, we sit down and we identify some goals. And so we kind of block these into short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. And you like to think of those short-term goals are things that are about 1 to 3 months, midterm 3 to 6, and long-term are 6 to 12 months. And you write them out. You identify, like, what is a primary goal? And there are lots of different ways you can do this. You can do integrative health assessments. to identify what might be the most important. But sometimes the simplest thing is to just ask, what is bothering you the most? And where can we start with that? Because sometimes, when you have a bunch of different things going on, you have to take them slowly, right? And so that's how we set up these short-term, midterm, long-term goals. We identify what's priority, and then what can we start doing over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. So in the short term, what was bothering her the most was really her digestive health. And so she identified that she wanted to improve her digestive health, particularly by reducing this bloating, reducing the inconsistency with her bowel movements. And so we created a plan that was based on diet, more fiber-rich foods, more real whole foods, probiotics and prebiotics, and establishing a consistent meal routine that included prayer and mindfulness. So it was really important from the very beginning to really reconnect Sarah's spiritual practices with her physical health. And so we just decided to do that with food, right? And so every single time she took her probiotics, or, she was preparing her meals or eating her meals, she was reminded to include prayer and mindfulness as part of that process. And it's something we can all do, really simple thing to set up a really long-term habit that can be very effective. 3 to 6 months, really, the hope was that, okay, if we establish, a better diet, and we kind of work on boosting our immune system, within 3 to 6 months, Sarah should start feeling a little bit more energy. So we wanted to make sure that we were starting to address her chronic fatigue by then, and really continuing to optimize her nutrient intake. So starting to maybe look at her diet even more with this lens of, okay, what are some things that we can cut, and what are some things that we can add in? And when you're feeling particularly overwhelmed or stressed or anxious, and you tend to go for those comfort foods, can you go for your Bible instead? Can you go for prayer instead? Can you call a friend? What are some things that you can switch for yourself in this kind of midterm goal range? Because it takes a little bit more time to do those kinds of things. And so we also, by then, wanted to focus on incorporating supplements in her diet, particularly B vitamins, magnesium, maybe iron. Maybe she was iron deficient. So making sure that we're testing some of these things as well, but adding in these supplements and additional vitamins. We also wanted to begin some gentle exercise to support her mental health and her energy. And I will tell you that typically, I use exercise more to support mental health. Yes, it's important for cardiovascular health. Yes, it's important for bone health, immune health, all those things. But exercise has a profound impact on our mental health. And so any kind of mental health programs that come from me are going to include exercise, because we know that when we do exercise, we increase serotonin, we increase dopamine, we increase all those things that are important for us to just feel better. And so we begin to incorporate this kind of gentle exercise within this kind of 3 to 6 month range. And then at this point, we also started talking about intermittent fasting. So fasting is a spiritual practice just as much as it a health practice. So I taught her how to utilize intermittent fasting as a tool to support both her physical and spiritual discipline. And so you can see that, you can't start all of these things at the same time. It's really overwhelming for individuals. So you have to start small, and then you just keep layering in. Beyond 6 months, 6 to 12 months, more long-term goals are really achieving a healthy weight. Most folks want to lose weight really fast. They want a quick fix. And we have to educate them that those things don't really exist. You might lose weight really fast, but the chances of you gaining that weight back and then some are much greater if you don't lose the weight over a healthy period of time. And so what I like to say, if you're looking to lose 20, 30 pounds, that's a year-long process or more, right? And so kind of setting the tone for that at the beginning, and then recognizing that if you do all of these things that we've been talking about, enhancing your diet, incorporating some gentle exercise, coping better with your mental stressors, over time, you will lose some weight. And so when you're balancing your nutrition, you're practicing regular physical activity, you're incorporating fasting, you will lose weight. And so that will happen over the course of the 6 to 12 months. And then obviously cultivating a deeper spiritual connection through this mindful eating and regular prayer. So really combining her prayer and faith life with her nutrition and physical health was a long-term goal. Okay, so then after we have our assessment done, we sit down, we write our goals, we can actually design the plan. And, this plan includes a lot of different components here. Spiritual nutrition is where I like to start. So we are encouraging her to begin each meal with prayer and gratitude, acknowledging God's provision. We're starting with mindful eating, really focusing on the present moment, savor each bite, and being aware of body hunger, fullness cues. Many individuals actually lose this hunger cues over time. And so it's reconnecting with her physical and spiritual body. In terms of dietary whole foods, like I said, unprocessed, we have to shift her diet to, emphasizing fruits, veggies, whole grains, Mediterranean diet. Science has shown time and time again that is the best thing for us, Mediterranean diet. None of these quick fixes, none of these things, keto, maybe, but Mediterranean diet's the way to go. And, if we incorporate lean proteins, healthy fats, emphasize fruits, veggies, and whole grains, we will enhance our physical health. Increase fiber, right? All these whole grains. Probiotic rich foods. These are important. Things like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut. Support gut health. So important. We forget that when we use a supplement or we eat probiotic, we also need to feed those bugs. We have to feed the microbiome. So prebiotics are those things that essentially feed our microbiome. And those are foods such as like garlic, onions. They feed the beneficial gut bacteria and further support our gut health. Thirdly, supplementation. I will tell you that, I do use supplements personally. I recommend them. In a perfect world, though, we don't need them. If we ate a perfect diet 100% of the time, and we knew that our gut was optimizing, working effectively, and we were able to optimize everything we ate, we don't need supplements. 99% of us still do. And so, for Sarah, we did recommend some supplementation. Magnesium was a really important one. Muscle relaxation and sleep. Also to kind of regulate her bowel. Magnesium does a really good job of that. Vitamin D. Most of the time, Sarah doesn't get outside much. And so if you're not getting a lot of sun exposure, you might be deficient. And so vitamin D, super important for the immune system as well as our mood. And then lastly, B vitamins and probiotics. So B vitamins, oh man, okay. B complex, energy levels, support stress management. If you are fatigued chronically, you probably need a B complex. You do need to go check your levels for sure and make certain, but we definitely needed some B vitamins for Sarah. And then probiotics. I'll go back to B vitamins. I will tell you, your gut health is incredibly important to your ability to absorb B vitamins. So if your gut health is poor, you're probably not doing a good job of absorbing those B vitamins. And so we've got to fix the problem before we just start, giving folks a whole bunch of supplements. So that starts with a probiotic. Okay, daily probiotic, restore the balance in her gut microbiome. Help to alleviate this digestive discomfort and boost her immune system, really. Next, we move on to lifestyle, emotional health. One of the biggest things for Sarah was a lot of stress management, healthy stress management. So we did incorporate things like gentle yoga, deep breathing exercises, and walking in nature. Really simple, but profoundly effective. Even if it's 10 minutes, getting outside, just taking a deep breath, walking out on her porch, after school, maybe she took a few minutes after school just to walk. And then encouraging her to seek support from her church, her community of friends, and, letting folks know, like, hey, I'm really working on this for my health. And, just getting that accountability sometimes is really important. Asking for help. We tend to not want to ask for help when we need it, but we need to lean into those communities. And intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is a spiritual discipline as much as it is a physical health tool. So it will improve metabolic health and support weight management, but it also helps us to enhance our discipline around food. And I learned this way back when, for the past 5 or 6 years now, I have actually done the Daniel plan, the Daniel fast, always at the beginning of the year, so that I can start my year off right in prayer. And something that Susan Gregory says as part of that program, which always stuck with me, is we have to dethrone King's stomach. Okay, that is not my quote, but I absolutely love it. We have to dethrone King's stomach and put the Lord back on the throne. And so fasting is exactly what that does for us. So there are folks who do need some additional support when they're fasting, especially if they're diabetic or pre-diabetic, but you can still do it. And so, work with a professional, try to figure out what might work best, but fasting is an incredible tool to help manage physical and spiritual and emotional health. And then lastly, Sarah needed a lot of education, but she also needed a lot of empowerment. So we had a lot of conversations about what her diet should look like. What are some good foods? What probiotics should I take? What does it mean to actually eat mindfully? And then obviously, how do I incorporate intermittent fasting? What should that look like? I offered recipes, meal plans. I sat down with her and we had a lot of follow-up sessions. You don't just give this plan and let them go. You give this plan and then you coordinate lots of follow-up and you adjust the plan as needed and offer ongoing support. So folks will need a lot of support when they're starting these, particularly if they're new to this. That support really comes in this kind of evaluation. You have to make sure, is she nutritionally making progress? How does her digestive health feel? How are her energy levels? How's her mood? Is there something that we need to modify? Are the things that we have in her diet plan that she actually doesn't like to eat? I don't like to recommend foods that people don't enjoy. We really need to be mindful of what's on those diet plans. Not everybody's okay with eating a bunch of beans and nuts, and so you have to modify those diet plans so that folks actually enjoy them and they are sustainable. Regularly check on and see how she's feeling spiritually. How is that emotional connection with her food going? Is she experiencing a deeper connection with God through these practices? Do we need to make some adjustments? Ask her, what's working, what's not working. If something isn't working, that's really okay. That gives us a lot of information. So don't ever take it personally if someone comes back and says, this didn't work for me. You gave me this plan, it didn't work. Well, there's still a lot of really good information in there. What's not going to work. Okay, so let's move on. Let's figure out what will work. Tell me why it didn't work. Most of the time people know what they need. They just need somebody to help them kind of figure that out. And so make adjustments as you go. It's super, super important. So I hope really the goal here is this case can help to illustrate this kind of idea of a holistic nutrition plan, combining dietary interventions, gut health, probiotics, fasting, and spiritual care to really address both Sarah's physical and emotional needs. And, this is a really unique kind of way to practice. And if we integrate her faith into her nutrition, we can create a plan that supports her whole person, her spirit, her soul, and her body. And so it's a very rewarding process. It doesn't happen overnight, but you really develop deep relationships with your clients, and you learn what works, what might not work. And so as you're focusing, as you're reflecting, I really want you to maybe pause, bring out your journals, start asking yourself, what really resonated with you as part of this integrative nutrition plan? What are some pieces that you can see yourself doing? What are things you could add? What are things that I didn't present to you that, you think are really important? What are things that might not be, right? How do you incorporate spiritual care into a nutritional practice? What does that look like? How might it enhance the effectiveness of our dietary interventions? So really start to reflect, what might this look like for your practice? Good luck. It's really exciting. It's a really great place to be, and just pray and continue to lean into the Lord for guidance in this area. He will provide every single time. Thank you.